This video is going to introduce and demonstrate Rosetta for PHP, which is a dynamic text engine. To start off, what can Rosetta do? Why would you want to use Rosetta? Rosetta can be used for translation, either bilingual or multilingual translation in PHP. And you can also use Rosetta to customize system messages in a web app. Or if you have dynamically generated system messages, you can allow your website administrator or clients or what have you to customize those messages without going into any code. Again, what is Rosetta? It's a dynamic text engine for PHP, as mentioned. It comes with a GUI editor for admins. As mentioned, admins or your client can use the GUI editor to edit dynamic text without touching any code. It's a single class, excluding the previously mentioned admin stuff. It's licensed under the LGPL, so you're free to use it, and you're free to use it in commercial applications as well. And it's available on GitHub. So how does it work? Basically, we have one or more XML dictionaries, and inside the XML dictionaries there will be a number of keys. And once you include Rosetta in your PHP page, you will load one of said XML dictionaries into Rosetta. You'll be able to retrieve strings based on their keys with optional substitutions. So you can substitute values like usernames and the date and so on into the keys stored in the XML document. And it also ships with optional admin features. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate all of said features of Rosetta, and I'm going to provide a tutorial on how to use it. So let's get started. Basically, here is the sample site that I'm going to be using in this video. It's a very simple site. It just has some text that I'm going to show you how to translate. So what I do on this page will be very similar to what you do if you want to translate a more or less static website. We have a button up the top to toggle between English and Japanese. Although the text doesn't get translated as of yet, we're going to do that together in this video. And there's also a login page which has a login form, and I'm going to use this page to demonstrate how you can allow a client or an administrator to change the dynamic system generated text in a situation like this. So let's take a look at the XML document that I mentioned before. Here is my root directory for my web server that's running locally, and inside this lang folder I recommend you do have all of your languages stored in its own folder, and I have two EN and JP. So if I open one of these up, basically we have the root node, which is a codex. You'll more or less copy and paste this and use this as a template. The name of the XML document, which you may want to pull from time to time. What's mainly important here is the GUID. The GUID needs to be unique between each XML document, XML dictionary that you use. It doesn't have to be unique compared to other stuff that's used by other applications online, but each XML document that you use needs to have a unique, globally unique identifier. And then you have your strings, which will contain all the text that you're going to use in your website or web app. Each string needs to have an ID. You'll pass this value in Rosetta when you want to pull this particular key. Optionally, you can specify the type, and the two types that are supported at the moment are text. If you specify text, then the text will be editable using a GUI in the admin features, which I'll demonstrate later. It can be text or it can be hidden. If it's hidden, then it won't be editable in the GUI-based admin editor or the key-based admin editor, both of which are part of the admin features. If you really don't care about editing any of this stuff, then you can omit this field entirely. You will need to place something in between the start and close tag, that's going to be the value that gets pulled. And it will be the exact same for other dictionaries that you have, except you would probably want to write this in the appropriate language, of course. So let's then take a look at this page here, our index page. So going back into the root directory, if I pull up the index page, basically we just have a little bit of PHP up the top to handle the toggle. We need to include Rosetta. Probably you should only require it once. And then when you instantiate Rosetta, you're instantiating it to a new object, and you can instantiate it in one of two ways. One way is to pass a URL to an XML file containing the XML that you want to load, as I'm doing here. And if you do that, you want to pass this constant load URL. You're also able to pass the XML content as a string as the first parameter. So if by chance you've stored your XML in a MySQL database or something like that, and you are loading it manually, all you need to do is to change from load URL to load string, and then that will work. But in our case, we're loading it as a URL, so I'm going to change this to load URL. And that's all you need to do to instantiate Rosetta. The rest of it is standard, but we have some links: home, about, login, and so on. So why not go ahead and start translating these, or making these more dynamic. So of course we need our PHP tags, and then it's a matter of echoing Rosetta get string, and then the tag that we're going to use, and this is going to be the home page, so we might as well call the tag home. And then if we jump into our English XML dictionary, we can make a new key and call it home, and this is just going to say home. But we should probably do the same thing for Japanese and say string ID equals home, and we don't have to worry about the type. And let's write home in Japanese, which is going to be home, and that's good to go. And having done that, if I just test this quickly, that seems to work. And if I click in Japanese, you can see that the appropriate key has been pulled from the Japanese dictionary, and it is, as far as static translation is concerned, it's exactly that for the entire site. Welcome back. So as you can see, we now have a perfectly translated website, and I've even translated the login page as well, although that's all I've done for now on the login page. But if we go back to the home page, then you can see that all we're doing is substituting the keys inside these functions, and we're getting the English text and the Japanese text, which is being pulled from this XML dictionary and this XML dictionary. And that's all there is there. Let's do something a little bit more complicated this time though. So let's take a look at some system generated error messages. So for example, when I try to submit this form with no text, we have failed. When I submit the form correctly, we have success. And even though this does work when I've translated it, we have atarimashita, success. What if we wanted some extra information, for example, like success and then the name of the user or something like that? So in that situation, we can use some substitutions. So if we jump into our XML document and we find the success key, we can say success, welcome, and then we can define a substituted parameter. So this parameter can get substituted with an argument that we pass in Rosetta. So let's then go into our login page and let's find the success section here, which here it is. And the first argument that we've been passing this whole time is the key, but there is an optional second argument, which is an array of key value pairs, which I'll show you how to do now. Yep, looks good. So we need to grab the name of the parameter, which here is name, and we need to say name is equal to, and we're going to say the username. I mean, it's always going to be the same. I'm only doing this real dummy example check here, but we could do something like this. Pull it from the post array, and if we ran something like that and said, I haven't done that in the Japanese dictionary yet, so let's switch back over to English. And if I log in, it says success, welcome J Sultana, and it has substituted the value coming from the post array into the key. And you can use multiple values in your substitution as well. So you could say, welcome, you logged in on, and then date. Or you could say the time is, and then maybe time, right? And because you're using name-based or key-based substitution, the order actually doesn't matter. So it should be presented with the name first and then the time. But we can actually supply these in the opposite order. So time equals date. Let's go with hour and then minute. And then a comma to separate the values. And if we log in, then let's try this again. J Sultana. It comes up with the time and my name. And the reason why this is really important to have is that actually in other languages the order of the values change. So if I were to do this in Japanese, for example, success, we would say something like atarimashita. And then we could say so you notice in Japanese we have to switch up the order of some of the words. So the way that this reads in Japanese is it's saying now, the time, and the verb is kind of at the end in a Japanese sentence, and it could even be worse in other languages. So that's especially why the order should not or must not matter when you do the substitution, and in our case that's perfectly fine. So the order in which you do your substitutions in your code does not matter. So that's great. So I guess the next thing to look at, as promised, is how can we have an admin edit these values? Does the admin actually have to go into this XML document and edit this text? I mean, as a developer, we don't mind doing that, but if you're building a web application or a multilingual website for a customer, you can't tell your customer to go into these XML documents and edit these keys here. which is why next I'm going to show you how to use the admin features of Rosetta to enable them to do that in their browser. Lastly, let's look at the admin features that I've mentioned, which enable your client or an administrator to change the content of the XML document without actually going into it. So there is a point and click feature where they can edit the text just by clicking on it, and for text which triggers other behavior when clicked, like links, or for non-visible text like an image href attribute, there's a key-based editor that they can use in their browser as well. So to get into the admin features, we need to do two things. Number one is you need to make sure that this admin folder is shipped with your solution, and you need to provide your client with a link to it. And you also need to add a little bit of code to your page. So looking at the index page, we need to start a session, and we need to add jQuery to the head. We also need to include this little PHP snippet calling get header on the Rosetta object, and that just injects a little bit of CSS that we need. And at the end of the page, we also need to include get footer, which dynamically injects some JavaScript. Once you've done that on each of the pages where you want to use the admin features, then you're good to go. This config.php file is also important when you're using the admin editor. And to generate this config file, I'm just going to delete it for an example. Let's go to the login page. So if you're sending your client or customer a link to the admin stuff, send them this link, a link to the login page. If the config file is not found, it will redirect to setup where they can enter in their information. We are just going to use the root, and they need to know the path of the dictionaries, so you can just give them the information to enter in here. And that looks all good, so let's submit that, and then we can log in with our details. Okay, and now we have this nice admin bar at the top. And if we actually take a look at our XML dictionary, I made one change while you were away. I added this type equals text, which I think I showed you at the beginning of this video. By adding type equals text, that enables the user to edit it in the browser. So if I hit edit mode and then I click this, I can actually edit this on the spot. Hello user, and hit OK, and that is sent via Ajax back to the admin folder, and it gets saved in the XML dictionary. And if I take a look here, we can see that it's saved. And if I open up this, we can see the new value has been saved in the file. So that's really easy. But what about something like, let's say for example these links can't really be clicked without triggering the link. So by doing that, we can click the key-based editor and log in using the same password. You can style this page however you want. And then we just select the dictionary that we want to edit, and then we have all of the keys on the left side and the values on the right side. And you can even edit the complicated substitution values as well. So if I wanted to edit, say, the links about us, save and return, and after having done that, you can see that the change has taken place. But maybe something like this you don't want the user to edit, because if they change these substitution values with the square brackets, it could maybe mess things up. So we can set type equals hidden, and and even in the key-based editor they shouldn't be able to edit those. So if we take a look, we can see that actually they can't edit that. That is not available for them to see or edit. Anyway, so that I think concludes the tutorial and demo on using Rosetta. If there's any feature that you think should be included that isn't, or if you have any contribution to make, feel free to get in touch. Or if you have any other question about Rosetta, yeah, feel free to get in touch via my website, which is jasonsultana.com. Thanks a lot and happy coding.